Welcome everyone to the Ageless Movement Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Scott Lohman.
I'm Sane Poignard.
And what are we talking about today, Sane?
Why are you asking me? You
Mo-
know exactly what we're talking about.
Motivation. Motivation is a problem for just about everybody, isn't it, in exercise?
For most.
For most. Well, who is it not an issue for?
Occasionally I find I get people who know like they need to do something, so they come in and they do what they need to. I mean, there's always a rare unicorn.
Yeah, okay, so by and large, motivation is definitely an issue with most clients if you're a trainer. And I'm going to go so far as to say it's mostly an issue for, I would say, most people. Staying motivated, staying on point, being focused. And it's something that you have to do on every different level, not just exercise, diet, making sure you sleep enough. I mean, it's just so many different factors. So I'm finding right now that motivation can be really difficult for some people during the pandemic. I mean, think about it. In most cases, most gyms are closed right now. Now it isn't the gyms per se are closed, it's just the fact that they can't operate indoors. And when you can't operate indoors, then like if a gym's incapable of operating outdoors, then they're closed. So I see a lot more people that are out there, you know, walking, running, and things like that. And those look like very motivated people. But I've heard a lot of horror stories about people that have just fallen off the wagon. They're pretty much eating whatever they want. They've watched everything on Netflix and Hulu. They're working from home. And they're probably ordering everything from Instacart or Amazon. So they're not even really leaving too much, some people.
Yeah, in fact, this week I was, in my usual kind of catching up on life, and one of my old classmates had their picture of their kids ready for school, and what do? They're all sitting in front of the computer hours on end. So it's hard to balance all of that plus, you know, what you normally do, because now our life is pretty much set in front of a computer or some sort of screen.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, sometimes, you know, you're battling minor injuries and you don't have all the equipment you normally have access to when you're in a pandemic such as we are. And yeah, sometimes it'll adversely affect me. I'll still do what I have to do, but you know, it's not as exciting as it normally is. And then I'll say sometimes I'll fall off a little bit with my diet, especially if I come back from a massage and I'm really sore and I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna have an It's It. What the hell?
It's really hot outside.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's very hot, so what do you want when it's really hot? The number one thing your body needs during a heat wave, right? It's
Water.
Water, yes. Well, water and It's go great together. I can attest to that.
Yeah, so for me, like I said in the past, you know, having community really helps. So I'm always showing up with those that I work out with, and that's even in my own personal workouts. So like I want to make sure that my coach is still able to continue going forward, because I want a gym to go back to. So it goes both ways. So that's for me personally, once this pandemic happened, was to continue working out with those people that I want to make sure are still around and still working out when we're finally back in the gym. So very little changed for me. The only one thing that I did change is that I don't do as much Pilates as I used to. So, and that was something I just started, and because I just started it, it wasn't something that came back into my pandemic workout, but at some point I will bring it back. For now, I'm sticking to my weights and I keep it regular by, I know what the schedule is. Same thing with the classes we teach. As soon as we went into lockdown, my first question was, are we gonna move online? It took a little bit to get there, so, but it's good that it's there. But yeah, I mean, for me, when something goes wrong, it's immediately like, what can I do to get back? And I don't know, that might actually come from, I mean, I used to be in business, and I used to manage money, and so there's never, you can't afford a day off basically in what I used to do, so I kind of have a different mentality around all of it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'd say for me, it was definitely a radical disruption of things. I feel like I've learned a lot so far as audio video production and things like that. I've always had an interest in it since I record music, but it's definitely made me fast track my knowledge in that area. And I gotta say, I'm fascinated by iPhones and what you can do with them. It's pretty amazing. And then you could use your iMovie, which comes free with your Apple computer. Well, it's not really free, you bought the computer. But the point is, it's there. It's not something you have to pay extra for. And the iMovie's basically what comes with the computer that's video editing. And they have a little bit of audio editing with it, but since I have a Pro Tools system, I do all my videos, my audio stuff there. And a lot of times I do video stuff there as well. But yeah, most of the hard work you do with video, you do in iMovie. And it's just taught me how to, to adapt and how to change my teaching style when I'm not actually seeing students in person. And we're to the point now at work where we have all our Zoom up and running. And yeah, it's going pretty good. It's going better than I thought it would go, and I'm very happy about that. But as far as motivation goes, I mean, for some people, I think they've been able to stay motivated because taking classes through Zoom is probably pretty easy because you don't have to get in your car and go anywhere. You don't have to spend a lot of time getting ready. If you don't want your face in the video, you can just mute your video, or not mute it, but blank your video and still be there and still see everything that's going on. So I feel like that's working out pretty good. But I'll tell you, with everything that's going on right now, including the fires and the bad quality of air, I can't think of a more challenging time to meet your fitness goals when it just seems like there's risks to your health in just about every step you take, right? When you leave your house, there's the risk of the coronavirus. There's this really unhealthy air right now, and God forbid you live in an area where the fires are raging. And both our hearts go out to people that have lost their homes or are on the verge of losing their homes. Yeah, it's traumatic. I mean, what we've had to endure in 2020 has been just mind-numbing.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a lot going on. So that was one of the first things I worked on, was just being realistic about what I would be able to do in this type of situation. So my goals aren't like my standard goals that I would have, every year or whatever, every 3 to 6 months. Once I knew we were going into lockdown, things changed. But luckily for me, because all of my equipment's portable, it didn't change too much. The only thing that changed is that I couldn't, or probably didn't do too much heavy lifting, especially not having access to a massage therapist or anybody else. So that part is where I definitely scaled down. And then from there, it was just every day was like, okay, well, what can I do today? That's pretty much how I do things. I recognize that every day is going to be different for whatever reason. Even down to the hour, if I don't eat correctly and I'm not properly, I don't have the proper nutrition to go into a workout that's an hour later, then that's my bad for planning, and it's not like I haven't done that.
Yeah.
I've overeaten before a workout, I've also undereaten. So it really, from there, I'm like literally in the moment, just adjusting whatever I need to survive a workout.
I remember in the past, many years ago, you had a few drinks before a workout.
Yeah. So, not highly
How does
recommended.
that work?
Scott teases me about it. My trainer freaked out about it. I've actually had a client come in and do the same thing. It's not recommended, but it happens. So.
Cocktails at a power lunch. There you go. So my question to you is, what are you doing now to motivate your clients? Because it's very easy for them to cancel during times like this, or just not work that hard during the session, especially when in many cases you're not in the same room with them. You're simply working with them through Zoom or audio video.
Yeah.
How does that work? How are you able to really connect with them on that level of motivation and, you know, affective domain?
So, I mean, pandemic or no pandemic, my clients come in, I mean, some of them have highly stressful jobs, so I'm usually not surprised by what happens when they step through the door. I prepare the workout the things that we need to work on once they get there. I mean, it's a physical check and a mental check. If they don't pass either of those, then we just have to start scaling down. I normally tell my clients when they're like, you know, I really don't feel like being here, I'm just too tired to work out or what have you. It's like, look, let's just do the warm up and then we'll go from there. And usually from that point, I often don't have, I mean, it doesn't go downhill by any means. It's like you just have to start moving. So that's how I kind of get around it. And then the other thing is just reminding them of what their goals are. And then, I mean, and just reminding them if there's a time frame involved, if we lose a day, then we've got to figure out a way to jump back on. And it's usually not easy to jump at a faster pace.
Yeah, I would say in my case, my clients have gotten in some cases more motivated because, excuse me, many of them, some of them not having a firm grasp of the audio video technology. And what I mean is using their iPhone or using FaceTime can be difficult for some, or they just don't know how to. My favorite thing is that they don't know how to position the camera. That always cracks me up because, like, they could see me on the other end, and there's usually, even in FaceTime, a little box in the corner that's you. So you could see where you are in the view. And sometimes I'm working with them and they just literally disappear from the screen. And I noticed that in Zoom classes as well, and I'm thinking, how do they not notice that the camera's up here and they're down here? Just move the camera down.
Like, yeah, I mean, I always remind them, okay, we're going down to the ground, so let's reposition.
Yeah.
Or if I feel like it's something I need to see. But for the most part, they're moving around their room anyway, so they're going to turn around a corner that I can't see anyway. So,
yeah.
And honestly, I gauge it off their breathing, because that part I can hear.
See, that's true. But when you're just correcting form and whatnot, and it's pretty interesting because I have one client who, during I guess it was the later part of the month of March, all of April and May, didn't work with me. And then when we were cleared to do one-on-one work, then he came back. And, even leading up to that time, we'd stayed in contact, and he was telling me, I'm losing my ability to get out of the chair now. And he's an older man in his late 70s, has a history of heart disease. And and he has a lot of problems with the left side of his body, especially his left foot and left leg. Hope I'm not giving too much away here. And and he literally was getting to the point where he felt like if he was to go much longer without doing some of the exercises that we do, that he might lose a lot of his independence. And at that point, I told him, I said, you have to be able to mitigate your own risk. And I asked him, do you go shopping? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I think that's a way bigger risk than, working one-on-one with a trainer in a clean setting or outside, right? So, eventually, once he got the green light from Gavin Newsom, he came back. And, he's been working with me since. And he's definitely not a guy that's going to be able to work with FaceTime, just because he does have hearing issues, and that might be difficult for him. Plus, he's just not a guy that would know how to connect his iPhone to his TV to see a bigger picture. So he would have to look into that little screen. Some of my clients were able to do that, but yeah, I think for some of my clients, they definitely got more motivated. I think for myself, I've had moments where I've been more motivated than usual, and then I've had moments where maybe I was a little less motivated nutritionally, just because I'm doing a lot of rehabilitative workouts right now anyway, more restorative in my lower body, and it's just not quite the same mentality. You're not going to be able to radically change your body composition or radically achieve a fitness goal in the not so distant future when you're just doing restorative stuff. Then the goal becomes, can I move better? Am I experiencing less pain? And that's a different type of training, different mentality.
But, and
you have to dial it down quite a bit when you're in that state, because if you push things a little too hard, then you're sore for 3 or 4 days. You don't want to be sore 3 or 4 days when you're trying to regain your function back and, rehab.
Yeah. Well, now is a good time to work on mobility, because, you need mobile joints in order to keep moving anyway. So when you're kind of stuck in this situation, that's actually one of the things that I feel like I do. I have more in my schedule than I used to, is kind of working on the mobility, and then I'm just doing whatever kettlebell work I can do in the meantime. But for me also, it comes down to how many days in the week have I worked out? Has it been too many days since I haven't done something? And what's the reason, and how do I get back on schedule? So that's, I keep it pretty simple that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. But I'm kind of amazed that I'm sort of getting used to the environment that I'm in right now at work, working out there. So I'm figuring I'm navigating pretty well now. But I found physically it's been just as hard. I don't know why, but it should be much easier considering I have a lot lighter weight to lift. But I feel like I'm still dealing with everything that I dealt with in the rehab of my knee. Now I'm dealing with it on the right side of my body, the hip and everything. Things are sore, and I can honestly say it's only been recently that I feel like my gait and my walking looks normal now.
Yeah, I was listening to a physical therapist, and I feel the same way. All these things take time, even when I try to tell clients about stuff I work on for posture. And we both agree in saying that 18 months is kind of what it takes to get back to feeling like things are kind of normal. So that's the thing, we just have to plug away for about that long, and then you'll start noticing the changes. But a lot of the up and down, I'm going to do it for a week, I'm not going to do it for 2 weeks, that makes it really hard. And I think that's
consistency is the mother of success in training. There's no question about it. And you brought up an interesting point where you said 18 months. So most of us are familiar with torn ACLs in football. It's a pretty common injury. Women do it a lot in basketball. And the athletes are always back by the next season. They're within 12 months. Now, and that's the interesting thing. It's just because you're strong again and you can move again and maybe you're not in pain, it is really an 18-month recovery. That is true. Because what I found during the time I was laid up, and I'm just literally putting bags of ice on my knee because I wasn't really clear to do anything beyond that at that point. So I was reading a lot about knee rehab. And one of the stunning things that I saw was, and I can't remember who it was, I think it was Mike Robertson was talking about this on one of his blogs, that there's been a lot of research that shows there's still mending in the knee, in the ACL on the knee at 16 months. So it's really, if you're a football player or a basketball player, it's oftentimes a 2 years before you were the person you were before. in terms of your mobility, your strength, your explosiveness. And if any of you have watched football and you've seen the 49ers play, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G, he didn't look as mobile last year as he did before the knee injury. And his play, you know, it definitely picked up as the season went on. And I'm fully expecting him to be more explosive and mobile in the pocket, because we will be at that 18-month point where everything should be fully mended by then. And I would say that's the case with just about every football player that's had an injury like that, or basketball player, or any athlete. But yeah, it is close to 18 months before everything's finally working right. And it's so easy when people would ask me, wow, you look like you're moving really well. What would you say? You're 80, you're 100, when are you going to be 100%? And I always got kind of annoyed when people would ask me that, because I didn't really know what to tell them. Because I still felt like there were things I needed to do better. Even though it took a little time as far as explaining, and they just want an easy quantitative answer, and it's not always that easy. You know, even if you've had a bad flu, or you had heat exhaustion at one point, it may take you several months to feel like you did before. It doesn't come back instantly, no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've even worked with somebody who's had a stroke, and, you know, watching early on, like, it was quite the struggle, and eventually I think I might have gone off to do some other stuff. And when I came back, which was roughly 2 years later, I mean, he's like whipping up and down the hallway like it was nothing. So, I mean, that's the thing. He always came in and diligently did what he needed to do. Whether or not he wanted to, I'm pretty sure he probably had some choice words every time he did the walk down the hallway. But I mean, that's what it takes, and I think that's a lot of times people either gloss over that if it's told to them, or they just think, oh well, why can't this? I've been doing this for 6 months. How come it's not any better? But I mean, I think more realistically, you have to just kind of know these are the things I need to do, keep plugging away, and then just see what it looks like in a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. And then the one thing I want to say about that 18-month window you're looking at, and even if you don't have an injury or something like that, but maybe you haven't worked out in a while, maybe your fascia, we talked about this a few weeks ago, having sore fascia, just having sore muscles in your body. It's not going to be like that forever. It's just like that right now. So you just have to get through the hard times and roll your fascia. And I think we should talk about that in the future too, how to take care of fascia, muscle fascia, because a lot of the pain that you're feeling isn't really old age. It's just your fascia not gliding over each other properly. I mean, that's how muscles need to work. They need to be smooth, they need to glide well, and it's really, there are periods where we all have problems with it. And I know it's difficult now, it's hard to see a massage therapist, but you know, there are ways around it. If you have a chiropractor, most chiropractors are considered essential. If they have a massage therapist at a chiropractic clinic, you should really consider getting that, you know, getting a massage as well as your basic chiropractic care.
Yeah, physical therapy might be the other option, depending on the therapists themselves. I personally find if it's a physical therapist, it's a physical therapist who's cash only. Usually physical therapy that is paid for by the insurance, I find they usually don't have a lot of time to work with you, so they might not do a lot of physical manipulation. So there is a difference in that world too, and I know a lot of people don't really know or think to go there, but I mean, to me, it would be worth it. I mean, Scott's done it. I mean, we've hit some roadblocks when he was recovering, and finally, I mean, like, we knew, even though we have a Kaiser PT, we've got to just basically go out and go get a different PT who does things that we need for them to do. I mean, for Scott, it was actually moving his patella.
The kneecap.
Yeah. So, you know, it seems like something people would know how to do, but honestly, until we found somebody outside of the setting, it didn't happen till then.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think a lot of things affect motivation. Definitely, when you feel great and you're healthy and you don't have anything you have to work on that's limiting you from doing what you want to do, it's hard. It is hard to be motivated, but those are the times you really need to dig deep and focus on the here and now. Compartmentalize, like I talked about last week. And yeah, it might mean you seeing a PT or just seeing somebody, even a trainer that's really effective at this sort of thing, just to get you going in the right direction. Because if you're kind of feel like you're spinning your wheels and going nowhere, that's the first sign that you're going to need some help professionally.
Yeah.
And all of us need it. I've needed it several times. And I'm a professional myself.
Yeah. Coaches need coaches. I've talked about it. I have a coach. I've had many coaches, depending on what it is that I need to do and what I want to learn. So I'm always going out there to see, who I can work with in order to get help. So, I mean, that's just, it's part of learning and it's part of it, adapting. So, I mean, if you need the help, you should definitely, it's worth it for the one session. I mean, I've worked with people 1 session, 2 sessions, once a month.
Hey, you get them in the right
whatever
direction, yeah. Get them on the right program, getting them performing the right exercises.
Yeah, so I mean, they're always, I used to have somebody where questions would come up throughout her training sessions. So, I saw her maybe, I don't know, every 2 weeks. So, but she knew what to do. It was just like, okay, what am I missing? What can I improve on? Because that's the thing that a lot of people, they can't see and they don't know. I mean, I feel like most of the time, most of the people who come to us who've never been to a trainer, they just don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. And that's probably the most stunning part for a lot of clients is they think they're just going to come in and work out and be told what to do. But there's more to it than that. You have to be very cognizant of your movement and what you're doing. And there's a certain amount of learning to it because there's things you need to work on and incorporate into the rest of your life. If you're only working with a client, a trainer once a week or even twice a week, you still need to be doing other things on the other days. So yeah, it requires being fully cognizant of what you're doing, mindful of what you're doing.
I know I tell my clients, I'm sure they just kind of look at me. But basically we're animals. We're supposed to move.
Yeah, very true.
And we're supposed to move every day.
Yeah.
So when people are like, oh, I haven't done anything for 2 weeks, that just, I mean, for me, that blows my mind.
It's a typical thing we hear from time to time.
Yeah. I mean, if I go 7 days without working out, it gets a little interesting. But, I mean, some of that can be hidden because either we're moving boxes and moving stuff around or we're doing yard work.
We're staying physically active.
Yeah, I mean, so it's easy to go, okay, my workout has now turned into daily stuff. And so it's easy to think I haven't done anything, but I'm talking straight workout to workout. I try really hard not to let too many days go by in between because it will be hard. And I mean, that's one of the things that I've been working on is the really short workouts, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. I think now that I've gotten my massage and my lower body's clear to go, it will be sprinting for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every little bit helps. And so, that's the thing. On days that I don't have time because I'm, back to back with clients, it shouldn't be hard for me to sprint up and down the Armory by any means.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We do have access, so just do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it was just physically, am I okay? Because if I'm not okay, I'm just going to keep building on those things that aren't working, which there were issues, but now we're clear and I know what I'm supposed to do because he gave me my homework.
Yeah, gotta do your homework, people.
And I did it on Saturday, but I didn't do it today because I felt great today. But that's okay. I know it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah.
But like I said, on the busy days, I should have no problem just doing a quick sprint every hour. That should be easy to do. Like I said, I'm working on the whole 10-minute kettlebell workout for any days that I don't have time to do something or I have more than a minute. to do something, and then from there I just keep building.
You know, I sort of run into this problem with my most motivated client, my favorite client. She's an accountant, and she sits a lot. And because she sits a lot, her hips just get really bad. So I finally convinced her to get up and walk around and do a few squats during the day, and even to roll her hip out with an alpha ball. And totally different now.
Yeah.
Much better hip function. She's not so tight in the hip. She's just moving better and feeling better now, and her back feels better. She was starting, and that's the funny thing. When your hips aren't quite right, you're going to start to experience back pain, but it doesn't hit you all at once. It just slowly builds up, and you don't realize you are experiencing back pain until you start poking around there, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's how I'm supposed to feel.
Right now I'm in the middle of taking a course, and since it's early on, like we're basically talking about moving all fluids, so blood, lymph,
yeah.
And it doesn't move if you don't move, and that's where I find a lot of my clients are always telling me that they're stiff. It's because they're not moving. So yeah, everything pulls. I mean, when they come in, and the first thing I check, I'm like, how are your ankles doing? Because for me, that's a big sign with a lot of my clients is when their ankles are completely swollen or much bigger than what they normally are. That's usually my physical check number one for a few of my clients that I see. So, you know, if you want the fluid's not going to move. I mean, I've even told this to one of our students that we have who's in a wheelchair. It's like, it's got to move. If you're going to get a blood test and the blood is coming out like sludge, you know, like either you're not hydrating enough or there's just not enough movement happening. Move your arms, kick your legs. I mean, whatever you feel like you can do, that's the only way the fluid is going to move.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a good place to end this. Keep moving. That's the thing. That's the whole thing to motivation. Just stay moving. Do something to keep your heart rate elevated during exercise. Do something to improve your strength. And stay within what your capabilities are at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know where you are at the moment. That's the thing. We all are in different places, and you just need to focus on where you are at the moment and progress from there.
Yeah, I have a client who pretty much when this all came down, like she just went crazy with the walking and now has a whole lot of different injuries, and that's when my question was, well, how did you increase? Well, you know, I basically kept a mile and then another mile and then another. I'm like, that's a huge increase to take on, especially during this time period when you have always sat, software engineer, didn't get out much, and you know, from 1 mile to 2 miles, that's double to me. Like that, we really have to take it incrementally and figure out what works for you. And that's the thing. From day to day, it might not be a straight number where it's like, okay, today I did 1 mile, tomorrow I can do 1.5 miles. Like it may go back and forth. So, I mean, I would keep track of that to see how you're feeling and then decide what's a good number to increase.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. No doubt about it. All right, so don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, Ageless Movement. If you have any comments or questions, leave it in the comment section, all right? Okay, hope you've had a great Sunday, not too smoky where you live. All right, take care, everyone.